Assalamualaikum and hello everyone. Me and my friends are going to talk about an incident that happens to flight 182 Air India. This incident actually have taken the life of all of its passengers and its crew members. It is actually a devastating and considered one of the deadliest incident that happens inside the aviation industry. So let's do a little bit more digging. Let's talk more. Let's discuss more about these incidents and find the root cause of it. June 23, 1985, a bomb exploded on Air India Flight 182 en route from Toronto to London, England, killing all 329 people aboard. Most of them are Canadians. 36 years later, the Air India bombing is still the worst terrorist attack in Canadian history. Since that terrible day in June 1985, the government has worked to investigate the crash of Flight 182, to bring the perpetrators of this act to justice, and to make the necessary changes to our policies, regulations, and legislation to safeguard everyone from terror.
Air India Flight 182 was an Air India flight operating on the Montreal-London-Delhi route. On 23 June 1985, it was operated using Boeing 747-237B registered VTEFO. It disintegrated in mid-air en route from Montreal to London at an altitude of 31,000 feet or 9,400 meters over the Atlantic Ocean. As a result of the explosion from a bomb planted by Canadian Sikh extremists known commonly as Khalistanis, who were involved in the Khalistanis movement, the remnant of the airliner fell into the ocean approximately 120 miles or 190 kilometers west-southwest of the southwest tip of Ireland, it killing all about 329 people, including 268 Canadian citizens, 27 British citizens, and 24 Indian citizens. So the bombing of Air India Flight 182 is the largest mass killing in Canadian history. The deadliest aviation incident in the history of Air India and was the deadliest act of aviation terrorism until the September 11 attack in 2001. So the Babar Khalsa terror group was implicated in the bombings.
Hi, Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. My name is MULIADDY. So I'm going to talk about the impact of the incident. Since that terrible day in June 1985, the government of Canada has worked to investigate the crash of Flight 182 to bring the perpetrators of this act to justice and to make the necessary changes to our policies, regulation, and legislation to safeguard Canadians from terror. The government has also continually adjusted its approach to airline and national security and security intelligence. In 2007, the government of Canada established a program to erect 3 new memorials and to refurbish an existing one in Ottawa so that Canadians would never forget the tragedy. The fourth and final memorial was dedicated in Montreal to remember the victims, following those dedicated in Toronto, Vancouver, and Ottawa.
Hello, my name is PAVISHAA and my record number is TCCA 1807068. I'm going to talk about impact of Air Flight 182. On June 23, a bomb blast on the Air India Flight 182 en route from Toronto to London. As we know, it kills all the 329 passengers on board. Most of them are Canadians, and it gives the biggest impact to the aviation and the terrorists. The Air India bomb itself is the worst terrorist attack in the Canadian history. It is one of the worst Canadian history. It's one of the worst bomb blasts. And there was 3 memorable which was located after the Canadian bombs. In one of it is at the Toronto. It gave us biggest impact in the aviation. That's all for me. Thank you.
Hello everyone! Before I start my presentation, I would like to introduce myself. My name is Brenda SOMODONG and I'm holding metric card DCCA 1903124. I will explain the causes of this incident. So as we see here, the causes of this incident is an explosion of a bomb. Yes, it is true. It is accepted by the authorities of Canadian and Indian. The explosion from a bomb was planned by the Canadian Sikh extremists that known commonly as Khalistanists, who were involved in the Khalistani movement. Besides, the Babar Khalsa terror group was implicated in the bombing too, which means the Canadian Khalistani terrorists. But not just that, the bombing of this flight coincided with Narita airport bombing too. It is proved by the investigator. They believe that the two plots were linked and that thus responsible were aiming for a double aircraft bombing. However, the bombing at Narita exploded early before it was loaded onto the plane. It is because the perpetrators failing to take into account that Japan does not observe daylight saving time. Thank you!
Researching history, even recent history of racialized groups like the unjust treatment of the families of victims of Air India bombing by the Canadian government are challenging in part because of the lack of documentation and the lack of academic research on this topic. So this lack speaks more generally to the lack of priority, which is the lack of caution over the injustice that racialized and other marginalized groups experience in Canada. The family had to prove their status as worthy Canadian citizens in the public realm using mainstream media as their means of communication and lobbying the government over a 20 years period before the government, which is Canadian government. They decided it will consider the call for justice, while we have argued that the inquiry in the end co-opted their demand just justify anti-terrorism and security politics and was incorporated in the culture of fighters. It does not mean their demand the edge of citizenship are thus meaningless. I argue that it is the responsibility of research activity and others to listen and take up their call for justice and to build on the insight, the energy and the vision for the justice of the generation before us. So thank you.